Let's continue with the story of Moses and the fourth location mentioned in the Quran in relation to his journey. After Moses settled and had a job and wife in Madian, he stayed there for a long time, but he was determined to go back to Miz.
As he was on his way to Miz with his family, he reached the valley of Tor, where God called him, "Verily I am thy Lord, therefore in my presence put off thy shoes, thou art in the sacred valley Tor." The sacred valley Tor is the location where Moses spoke to God. This valley is next to a very high and huge mountainous structure called the Tor. The Quran says, "And we called him from the right side of the Tor and made him draw near to us." This implies that the very high and huge mountainous structure called the Tor is in the same location of the sacred valley of Tor.
The question that comes to mind here is, where is this location? Where is the sacred valley of Tor, and in which country?
Let's check the map. If Moses is returning from his family from Madian, then clearly he would enter Miz from the south, which implies he would pass through Abyssinia and the eastern north of Sudan. Indeed, on the current borders of Sudan and Abyssinia, and specifically on the Abyssinian highlands, is a valley named Tor. You can find this information in the book of James Bruce, a Scottish explorer who was the first to follow the Blue Nile from its source until it meets the White Nile. On the 29th of November 1772, Bruce arrived in Aswan and published his book, Expeditions to Discover the Sources of the Nile, between 1769 and 1773. It's considered one of the most authentic books that examine the River Nile Valley. About his trip from Ethiopia to Egypt, he mentioned a significant piece of information. He referred to a town called Al-Qaddarif, a town at the border between northern Sudan and the Abyssinian highlands. Its true name was Tor. Bruce illustrates the map of Miz before the recent borders between the north and the south. On the map you can easily locate Tor next to Abyssinian Heights. From a geographical perspective, Tor, or the city of Al-Qaddarif, is located in the Ethiopian hills at the border with Sudan. Rivers flow into this place and create fertile rich soils that retain water and provide essential nutrients to plants. In fact, it's considered to be one of the top agricultural areas in Sudan, with high fertile valleys around the rivers of Adbar, State, Al-Harad and Bislam, highly known for corn and sesame all around the world. As for the animal population in Al-Qaddarif, around 7 million different types of cattle come from nearby neighbourhoods seeking water and food. God describes this area in the Quran as the blessed spot. The blessing refers to the diversity of the rivers, agricultural crops, trees and food, which applies to the city of Al-Qaddarif. This area and Sudan in general is considered to be the food basket of the world. There is no other area as blessed agriculturally as this area in the entire Arabian and African region, just in terms of the number of rivers, the variety of agricultural harvests and the greenery.
So what is the story of the very high and huge mountainous structure called the Tor, or the Tower, the fifth location identified in the Quran? "And we called him from the right side of the Tor and made him draw near to us." The Tor is a very high and huge mountainous structure and was mentioned in the Quran as the Tor Sina or Sinai, the Tor Sanin, and just as the Tor.
It's recorded in Arabic dictionaries and scholars of the science of tafsir that Sinai and Sanin are known Abyssinian nouns. Indeed, if you check the map of the Abyssinian highlands, you will find names like Sanin, Semien, Sina, Senan. In fact, in the Abyssinian highlands you will find a mountain called Debre Sina, or Mount Sinai in English. The exact name of the mountain is also found in modern Egypt and is called Mount Sinai. You will also find in Abyssinian highlands Mount Sanin. And what's interesting is that in the Abyssinian highlands, despite the difference in the names, Sanin, Semien, Senan, Sina, etc., they all represent one mountainous structure, one range, one plateau, called the Tower Plateau. From a geological perspective, the Abyssinian highlands is considered to be one block, moulded since creation from one origin. This range is called the Abyssinian Tower, also referred to as the African Tower, because it is the biggest group of mountains with a height that extends in one chain in Africa for a very long distance, 519,278 kilometers squared. That's why Ethiopia is sometimes referred to as a tower. Even the highest peak in Africa, Mount Kilimanjaro, extends only to 4,000 kilometers squared. The Abyssinian Heights has been referred to as the African Plateau or the African Roof, with different heights exceeding 4,000 metres to a maximum of 4,500 metres. As for the Sinai or Sina mountain in modern Egypt, Its average height is only 2,300 metres, and the area of Sinai altogether is 61,000 kilometres squared. Most importantly, the Sinai that you know today in modern Egypt was not called Sinai in the time of Moses and the Pharaoh. It was called Mafkat, which means the land of turquoise. Also, the so-called Mount of Tor in Sinai in modern Egypt was then called Retho. There is no single evidence of the usage of the name Senin or Sinai for any of the mountains in the turquoise land that was later named Sinai or Sinai. The Quran has to refer to known nouns with the real names as they were used at the time, and there is no mention of Mafkat or Retho in Moses' story. What was referred to in the story was the Tor Senin and the Tor Sinai, which are known nouns from an Abyssinian origin, as documented in the authentic Arabic dictionaries and as illustrated by scholars of tafsir.
Let's get back to the terminology that describes the Abyssinian highlands as the Tower Heights. The word tower simply means the highest location from which you can see across the largest possible landscape around you. There's nothing as high and nothing as big as this spot in all of the Arabian and African region. To further simplify this, the word tower originally comes from Tor in Arabic. The word tower in French is Tor, in Spanish it's Torre, in Italian also Torre, and in German it's Turm. It's clear they all come from the same word, the Arabic word Tor.
Of course, this is no coincidence, because if you look in the Oxford English Dictionary, you'll find that the origin of tower is Tor. It's also worth noting that there's another name for the Abyssinian highlands, that is, the water tower. This is because it is the water source of the River Nile Valley for all this region, south from Abyssinia, north and east from Sudan, and all the way to the Mediterranean. When God swears by the Tor, then he swears by the Abyssinian highlands, or the so-called water tower, the source of the water of the River Nile, referred to as al-Bahra al-Major, or the large body of water kept filled in Quran. Yes, the River Nile is al-Bahra al-Major, or the large body of water kept filled. Let me clarify this one too. What is the meaning of al-Bahra al-Major? It means the sea that gets full until it floods, and as we know, the flood is a main characteristic of the River Nile. To summarize these meanings and connections, the River Nile originates from the Abyssinian highlands, the water tower, the Tor. Each year there is a flood season, so the soil gets fed with silt. This natural flooding phenomena is what created the first civilization in history, the Nile Valley civilization. Without the flood, there is no agriculture and no civilization. Al-Bahra al-Major, as mentioned, refers to the sea that gets full and floods, thus referring to the River Nile.
As we answered before, the word al-Bahra in Arabic and in the Quran is used to refer to both river and sea. In a nutshell, the Tor is the source of al-Bahra al-Major, or the River Nile. At this point, you might also wonder, can there be a water stream that fit the definition of al-Bahra al-Major other than the River Nile? Well, what are the odds for a location that connects all the aforementioned dots, a location that meets the specific characteristics of the Tor Sinin, the Tor, the Valley of Tor, and al-Bahra al-Major, as referred to in the Quran, other than the Abyssinian highlands?
In the Quran, also a tree springing out of Mount Sinai which produces fat and relish for those who use it for food. On the top of the Abyssinian highlands there is a belt of trees that extends to Senegal in West Africa. It's called the trees of shea butter that grows only on the equator, and their fruits contain butter that has an ivory colour. The shea butter trees only grow in Africa on their own accord without interference by humans. They're a blessing from God to the Africans. They support the people in their lives so they can use them in their nutrition, as a medicine, and to protect their bodies from the heat of the sun. The shea butter tree is also called the tree of life. It's a source of income for Abyssinian and African women because women in Africa are the ones who gather the shea fruit, wash and dry it, and grind the seeds to extract the butter. This tree has an extended lifespan, producing fruits for more than 400 years. Compared to other trees, this is a very long time. For example, an apple tree lives for 45 years at most. The belt of shea butter trees covers an area of more than 3.7 million square kilometres. It's the longest belt of trees on earth. Some tafsir scholars explain the verse, also a tree springing out of Mount Sinai which produces fat and relish for those who use it for food, as referring to the olive tree and the olive oil that comes from that. However, there's a big difference linguistically and otherwise between oil, zayit, and butter, den. Scientifically, oil is liquid at room temperature, but butter is solid at room temperature. And if what is referred to is an olive tree, the Quran would have said which produces oil, same as God said before about the oil tree, whose oil would almost glow.
To summarise, as Moses was returning to Misr from Midian, Yemen, God talked to him at Tour Valley, that is next to the Abyssinian highlands, the Tor, at the Sudanese-Abyssinian border, which is currently called Al-Qaddarif, which was the southern part of Misr before the British colonisation.